This conference will now be recorded.
Speaking of which, my little light is not on. The light's not on, therefore no one's on. So I guess I will say that all again so that the people online can hear it. Sorry for those of you in the room. So we're going to commence our public hearing for the 23-24 budget. Please understand that this is not necessarily the final, and we will take into consideration public comment, and if need be, we can make budget amendments. I would recommend that a budget amendment hearing be done as our second meeting in October. And for all of you online, if you have a comment, please state your name. And for those of you in the room, please go to the microphone and state your name for public record. Thank you. Is there a hand up online? I just wondered if you wanted in or out, where you want to go first. Doesn't matter. We'll start in the room. That usually is the icebreaker. I'll break the ice. Does that mean I'm good? The light is on.
Okay. My name's Karen Ketchu. I'm library director. I'll just apologize first. I feel like I'm being repetitive, but I'll just ask also that my comments are recorded in the meeting notes tonight. They're pretty general. I'm trying to find a pocket that I don't have. First, I appreciate everyone's efforts. It's not easy to put together a budget and Ginger carries a lot of the load putting that together. So I absolutely, and I appreciate all of your time trying to learn all of the complicated in and outs. I just want to make that clear. So more than ever, the precedent that may be set tonight about all of the library's general funds being removed from the budget says to me that our efforts merit a better way of getting this done. Things have been the same. I think this is my 7th or 8th budget year, and the cycle has been the same every time. And I'm convinced there's a better way. I'm convinced there's a more productive way and a more collaborative way to reach an endpoint so that all departments are represented. Not to say that everybody gets exactly what they want. I'm not naive about that point, but that so everybody is represented. And so the residents of Ennis are represented in what services they use. Such as, can we start earlier next year so that we all have a chance to learn together and there's not as much pressure right now at the end of the year to meet a deadline. I think everybody makes better decisions when you have time to think about things. In the future, consider allocating mills so that budgeting is easier and more consistent and predictable. I believe there are positive conversations that can come out of this. To look closely at the town's policies, such as compensated absence, and understand that better so it's not such a big question mark, and so that the town can perhaps save money by setting policy to match the best practice. And finally, if we, meaning the council and the mayor and admin and department heads, can work together for the best outcome, I do believe that's the best process for our residents in the town of Ennis. There's some pretty big brains in the room, I think, and we all have really good ideas to share. And I don't think that a budget decision should be unilateral. I think it should be collaborative, especially when we're talking about maximizing value with taxpayer funds. So I just hope that we can all consider a better process next year. Thank you.
Mayor Nikki Haas.
Yes, Mr.
Good,
Greenbaum.
good evening, and good evening to everybody there, members of the general public and town commissioners. As a point of order, generally on opening up a public meeting such as this, you would ask for public comment on non-agenda items. Did you? I don't know if you called for that yet.
Not during public hearing.
Not during a public hearing?
During
It's
a
still-
regular public meeting, you do. But generally not during where it says open public hearing.
Okay. I thought that was always generally, it's a public hearing is a public meeting. I always thought that was just, protocol, but, and I understand that, you've got your whole thing lined out, so I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Thank you. All right, next public comment from the room.
Just want to make sure it on.
I can see from here.
Okay,
So
well,
yes.
good evening. My name is Lisa Roberts. I'm an Ennis resident, and I was at the budget work session last week that you had. It's the first time, or the first one that I attended this year. I would echo, as a former commissioner, Karen's comments on starting earlier. With the budget, I know Mayor Nikki has asked, give me your wish list. What would you like to see in the budget? And I know that's happened in the past as well. And I think that's a great first step. However, it's like building a house, and I could say, okay, what features do I want in a house? And we can ask my husband, what features do you want in a house? And then we can ask my kids, what features do you want in a house? Do you want a pool, game room, whatever? But it really comes down to when you're at that budget and you're working with a builder to say, what can we afford? Yeah, I might not get the, stained glass windows that I want. My husband might not get the, steam shower that he wants, and my kids probably aren't going to get the basketball court. So I would echo that the collaborative effort needs to start in the beginning. At last meeting, I did ask about the MOU with the sheriff's department, and Mayor Nikki answered in the affirmative that MOU is currently expired. That is a major hole in the budget and a major uncertainty that I believe you can't pass a budget. And I'm not saying to vote no on the budget. I'm asking that you table this issue until you can work out an MOU with the sheriff's office. And I also understand the deadline of October 1st. I had the opportunity to call and talk with Shauna from the Montana Financial Services Division for Local Government Services and ask her about the deadline for the budget. Technically, the budget was due September 7th because it's first Tuesday after, or excuse me, the first Thursday after the first Tuesday, whatever. But it's due to her office by October 1st. And I've always felt the same as you do, is like there is this hurry up to get it done. We need to meet this deadline. And so I asked Shauna, what is the consequence of not adopting a budget to your office? And she said it's a budget finding. And a budget finding is that once you rack up a few budget findings, they'll come and talk to you, and then you'll have to work with the state. If you continue not to work with the state, that's when, after an egregious time, that, they could withhold federal funding from the state. I would also like to know there are current budget findings that Shauna said that she was working with, specifically caste reconciliation, that she's going to be working with the town on. That being said, I think this MOU, and this is a huge community issue. I was able to read Officer Moore's parts of his letter that someone provided me that he posted online. And there's just a few things about that I'm surprised about, considering that the COPS grant from the Department of Justice, according to their website, that application is due May 15th. So that means that there has been planning and conversation, not with the council, not in an open meeting, but maybe at the executive level, that didn't include the commissioners about that grant and what that means for the rest of the departments in the budget. And so I just think with that May 15th deadline, that's certainly, there must be June, July, August, and then September, that were 4 potential months, 120 days to talk and have an open meeting about this immense, important community issue. I also had the time today. I got to sit down with elected Sheriff Duncan Hedges, and the department and the dispatch. I met Christine Keltner today, both lovely folks. I happened to call them after the meeting last week and said, hey, can I sit down with you to get a greater understanding of the MOU and whatnot and what that is. And so they have some concerns. Currently, and I have a little handout because everybody loves a visual aid that I was able to compile. These are basically my notes from You're good. My meeting today with the sheriff and the dispatch. If you want to flip over these are directly from dispatch, from Madison County Sheriff's Department Dispatch Office. These are direct calls for service. These are not self-initiated calls, nor are they parking calls or whatever. This is when someone calls either the emergency or non-emergency number, so specifically calls for service. The first category is year to date. It is daytime calls, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. EPD responded to 306 calls. Madison County Sheriff's Office, which is daytime calls, again, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., responded to 122. That's about 28.5% of daytime calls that the Madison County Sheriff's Office is currently answering. Nighttime calls, NSPD responded to 14 calls, and Madison County Sheriff's Office responded to 103 calls for service. And then you can see down the other years. There's 21 or 22 and 21. For the same time period, from September 29th to September 28th, today, there were 13 arrests within the Ennis city limits or Ennis town limits. Madison County Sheriff's Office did all 13 of those. There were no arrests by Ennis Police Department. So when we had a brief discussion about the severity of calls, I think the arrests show that the more severe calls are happening when the Madison County Sheriff's Office is responding to calls. Flipping back over to the front, as I understood our conversation today with them, there's basically three options. And this should be a community discussion. I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight, but I'm asking for the time for a greater community discussion. Option number one is that we keep as it is. In the current budget presented, we have about $217,000 allocated to law enforcement services here in Ennis. Ennis Police Department covers 86 hours per week with 2 officers. Madison County Sheriff's Office covers 82 hours. You just subtract that. Additional costs from Madison County would be levied. Those are going to be dispatch services. Currently, Ennis's call volume is about 13%. 13% of the dispatch budget is $100,000. There will also be licensing fees, records keeping fees, most likely additional court costs with those 14 arrests. Those were put into justice court. Those could be easily put into our Ennis City Court. And then we would have the extra hours of service. And then one thing that is not on here is actually jail. So that a yes vote on tonight's budget without numbers, knowing what these numbers are, would commit to taxes being raised exponentially in Ennis. Number two, Ennis goes it alone. Ennis provides its own 24/7 police coverage. I called a local municipality close to us, Manhattan, Montana, because that's what their taxpayers decided to do. So they passed a budget. They wanted to have their own police department. They also have their own court system. They spend, their budget line item this year is $744,000. That does not include their court costs, which when you have that, you have an added prosecutor costs. When the town voters passed the levy for the second officer in Ennis, it was about $40, raised the $50,000. Like on my tax bill, my taxes went up $40,000, or excuse me, I misspoke. $40 raised the $50,000. If Ennis taxpayers were to commit to having their own police department, that provides 24/7 coverage, to raise $750,000 using the same Manhattan, Montana print, taxes would go up $600 to just for that. And in that example, dispatch would be provided by Madison County. Number three, contracting law enforcement services through Madison County Sheriff's Department. This is what several communities do in Montana. And it would include everything. It would include 24/7 coverage, dispatch services, licensing fees, records costs, jail, and so on. We're still awaiting a final number, and I think that's a number that the sheriff's office, it's a negotiating tool, but it's probably at or around what our current budget is, but more or less under $300,000 for 24/7 coverage. And I know that the you know, the mayor is under, you know, the MCA rule and the opinion from an attorney general in 1993 that the sheriff's office is legally required to provide service. Um, that is true, but up to what extent? And also, if that was totally true in every municipality, why is Manhattan, Montana paying $750,000 for service? Why is Three Forks, Montana contracting with the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office to the tune to $350,000 a year? So I think a lot of those communities would say, hey, we want our money back. The sheriff's office has to cover it no matter what. And so with that, these are really big, again, really big community decisions. And I think they need open meetings. I believe several of you, including the mayor, ran on a platform of transparency. And this is a decision. And if we want to hire and have a police force to that, like Manhattan did, you know, we should do that, but we shouldn't be iced out. I believe the commissioners have been pushed out of the decision-making process for a really big decision. And so I am asking you tonight to table this decision until you can meet with, till the council can meet with the sheriff's department and maybe a commissioner. I called yesterday. He was available today. We met for nearly 2 hours. So, thank you for your time. I know a lot of effort goes into this, and I know sometimes it feels overwhelming. But please don't make hasty decisions because they have long-term effects. And the town of Ennis residents and taxpayers are counting on you. Thank you.
John Moore, Chief of Police. I've got a few things to cover that Lisa covered rather inaccurately. The COPS grant was authorized by the mayor to be applied for. However, the commission has to accept the COPS grant. In years past, because of improper fiscal spending from the town, quoted by the federal government, we were denied the COPS grants in 4 years past. This year, they've changed the requirements for the COPS grant. So we may get it, we may not, we don't know. Until the grant is approved, I have nothing to bring to the commission to bring up to them for that. The application was turned in. We're just waiting on whether or not they're going to give us the grant or not. You guys are busy people. There's no point in wasting your time if we're not going to get it. One of the other comments made was about the jail. Jail is required under MCA to be provided by the sheriff's department. The police department and the town is not responsible to pay anything for the jail. Community recently voted for a second officer. In that included the mill levy money for that officer. Should that officer disappear, that mill levy money will also disappear. Based on the wording by the city attorney, we have to keep that second officer to continue that mill levy. We did that to be fair to the taxpayers, so they were getting what they asked for, which was another officer. Something quoted from that attorney general's opinion. Each city or town must have a chief of police, and no further police officers are required. The next part continues about a county sheriff, what their requirements are. I'm going to skip that part. The sheriff has the primary duty to enforce county and state laws throughout the county. If local law enforcement is lacking, the sheriff must undertake such enforcement. And just so you know, an attorney general's opinion holds the weight of law unless it is overturned in a court of law. That opinion has never been overturned. The Madison County attorney at the time that the MOU, the previous MOU was created, looked at the MOU and decided that based on what was discussed, that we would be double taxing our residents, which is illegal. So basically what it means is we're paying the sheriff's department out of the general fund to cover calls that they are required to cover because we still pay taxes for the sheriff in the town. Everybody in this community pays sheriff's department taxes for the sheriff's department to respond. So just like if you live in city limits or you live out on the golf course, you pay the same amount for the same services for the sheriff's department. What they're asking is for the town to pay additional money out of our general fund. So essentially we are double taxing our residents to pay for these services.
Yeah, where's Howard? Okay. What can I help with?
So Lisa quoted the arrests. Arrests are handled a little bit differently in city limits because we have immediate access to the judge via go to meeting. A lot of our arrests are not taken to jail and booked in the jail. They see the judge from our patrol car or from our cell phone, or we bring them in here and they see the judge through go to meeting right away. The judge issues conditions of release, they're sent on their way. So we don't have to burden the sheriff's department with booking them and possibly transporting them to jail. State law states that we have to bring somebody that's arrested to the closest to judge. If we are in town limits and the judge is available, we bring them here. It's a convenience to the people. They're not getting hauled up there. They're still being put under conditions by the judge. So the judge sees them and then they're given a mandatory court date to come back. So we didn't have any in custody arrests. That's correct. But the arrests that were made were brought in front of the judge so the judge could see those. And I would have to check with the court to actually get how many of those we actually did, but it's a quite frequent occurrence. We'll be on the side of the road and we'll pull them up right on our car computer and have that go to meeting with the judge and issue the conditions of release and kick the person loose right there. It saves the court time, it saves us time, it saves booking time, it saves the sheriff's department transport time, because again, under Montana code annotated, they are required to house a jail and to transport those prisoners once we get them up to Virginia City. Let me see if I've just got anything else here for you. So dispatch services. Dispatch services are provided to all the other departments in this county for free. We are the only ones that have been charged in the past for that. In the past, we have used the dispatch services for our criminal histories and our driver's histories, which are the big thing, and our CGN access. We now have been certified on our criminal histories and our CGN access. We have been doing all of that ourselves for about the past month now. We run all of our own CGN, which is driver's licenses and license plates. We run all of those checks ourselves. So we are lightening the burden off of dispatch significantly. The departments that use the dispatch services, they are dispatch is what's called a PSAP, so Public Safety Answering Point. They are required by law, because they are the Madison County PSAP, to answer all 911 calls and forward those to the respective agencies. There is actually another Attorney General's opinion on that. I'll be happy to provide it to you. It says that they are required to answer those calls and forward those calls to the agency responding. So they have to answer the phone. They have to forward those. So many other departments that use dispatch, all the fire departments, both ambulance services, fish and game, highway patrol, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, search and rescue, motor carrier services, just to name a few. None of them are charged for dispatch services. Now, I have zero problem paying a little extra for dispatch services if they're providing us with extra services above and beyond what they're providing all these other entities, which is basic dispatch services. So, according to Montana Code 732-4101, police departments are authorized and required. So you have to have at least a chief of police, and that is right from that Attorney General's opinion. Now, Sheridan, Twin Bridges, and Virginia City are three other incorporated towns in this county. None of them have a chief of police. All of them have MOUs with the Sheriff's Department. Sheridan and Twin Bridges do not pay a cent. Virginia City pays $1,000 towards sheriff's training, and we have copies of those MOUs if you'd like them also. Part of the Attorney General's opinion is the sheriff must know when he has to cover. It's his undertaking. Part of with the old MOU and what we've continued to do, the Sheriff's Department scheduling app, we provide our schedule to the Sheriff's Department so they know when somebody from NSPD is on and they know when we are off duty. They are aware of when somebody is on and when somebody's off. All the deputies and all the dispatchers have access to that system so they can actually see when we're around. We, as a town, meet the requirements for Montana code and for the Attorney General's opinion. We have a police chief here. We're also helping the Sheriff's Department here by providing another 43 hours a week or 86 hours every 2 weeks, because we're providing them a second officer, which we are not required by law to do. But the voters of this town were nice enough to say, hey, we need another officer here. Don't get me wrong. I think that we need night coverage. However, statistically, the amount of calls that we have are during the day. 86% of the calls from last year are daytime calls between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. You guys can look up the January commission report. That's where everything, all those statistics are. It breaks down all the calls and everything. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
can you speak to the issue of the sheriff's response to zoning ordinances and town ordinances in general?
Thank you, Mr. Greenbaum. I would be happy to. So the Sheriff's Department does not write any ordinance violations. They do not write any municipal infractions whatsoever. So camping within city limits, any zoning regulations, any parking regulations, they do not write any of those tickets. So therefore, none of those would exist if the Sheriff's Department took over, unless it was very specifically stated that they have to enforce those. The other issue is with Sheriff's Department coverage. When we're on duty, you have less than a 5-minute response time anywhere in town, usually a 2 to 3 minute response time anywhere in town to an emergency call. Sheriff's Department, their main office is in Virginia City. Look at the call times at night when they have to come over here, or other times when they have to come over here. Sometimes it's 15 plus minutes to respond to an in progress. So you have a dedicated officer here, and yes, if we get a third officer here, we will increase that response time significantly to get there. But just with us on duty during the day, it's always less than a 5-minute response time, unless we're maybe on another call. So anything there, you get almost instant service. Whereas with the Sheriff's Department, the call may get triaged, it may go to the bottom of the list, and they may have to wait on a non-emergency call, and on a priority call, they could be coming from Twin Bridges over here, lights and sirens. Good weather, half an hour. Bad weather, an hour and a half plus.
So, Chief, I got another question for you, if you might be able to respond. Based on the call volume that the EPD has, according to what Lisa Roberts was speaking about, 306 calls in the day, and then knowing that we already have a police department with a chief and an officer, and the Madison County Sheriff's Office wants to charge the town for doing what it's statutorily, legally obligated to do in any event. But let's just put that part aside for a moment and answer, what would you speculate would be the charge the Madison County Sheriff's Office would want to impose upon the town, knowing that they'd be taking over everything?
Well, in Gallatin County, they just raised the fees for the Sheriff's Department to over $750,000 for full-time coverage in the Big Sky area. Now, give or take, but that's what it's gone up to up there. So who knows what it would be. My other concern is response times. The voters wanted a second police officer. They wanted a police department here for those quicker response times. If we go to the Sheriff's Department, they could be anywhere in the county responding. So you're back up to just your regular old taxes paying for it. So why should we pay extra if you already pay taxes for the Sheriff's Department?
Yeah. I appreciate that, Chief. And if I may, Mayor Nikki, I would like to just add a little bit to the conversation here. That is, in my opinion, the fallout that the town would experience from going into a non-compliant budgetary stance. In other words, if you fail to adopt the budget tonight because of some intent to defund the local police department, which legally you couldn't even accomplish that, knowing that you passed resolution 566-2022, and you have all these other outstanding grants and commitments. It would be fiscally irresponsible to not adopt a budget under any condition tonight. But it would be even more significant if you fail to adopt a budget based on some concept of defunding the local police department, which you're committed to fund based on your resolution and all your existing commitments. So I just wanted to add that in there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now back to the floor. We've heard from 2 so far, non-staff members. Next for public comment.
I just have a couple of questions. Myron Walmo from Ennis. I'm a resident, retired. A couple of questions. One is there a item on the table for having a planning commission for the city of Ennis or town of Ennis to kind of put some controls on this expansion we're going through? I realize we're looking for growth, but a little growth is it's getting to be more than a little growth. And we don't have water drilled, tanks ready, nothing. And it's a big concern. My second one is there a requirement for the PD to be up at the school? If there's not, why doesn't the school hire a resource officer? Give the PD more time on the street, because I expected a lot more when we hired the second law enforcement officer on duty. I expected a lot more exposure through the city. The traffic is getting ridiculous. I mean, I don't care if it's summertime, wintertime, but when you get passed at the hospital, every time you drive by, because you're doing the speed limit and somebody else is tailgating you and they get mad at you because you're not traveling fast enough, they zoom around. It's really where they're, to me, I don't know why, if they utilize the time, there's 2 officers on duty, utilize that instead of having to go to the school and play resource officer. And that'd be all I can say. Thank you.
Commissioners, Ms. Mayor, John Way, for the record, business owner, live here in Ennis. I've been studying this budget for, I don't know, a few days since it's been in my hand, and I have to give you guys a lot of credit. You put together a pretty thorough budget. A few things from the general public, from me studying the budget that has been brought up by other folks is some notes on the budget to allow folks. Oh. All right. So what's that? Some notes on the budget. And anytime you do budgets, you have to think about this town as, and I'm sure you guys do. I'm sure you guys take this job extremely seriously, And I thank you for that. I appreciate what you're doing, but you have to think about running a town sort of like a business when you put together a budget, and to kind of maximize the value for every line item to where you can. And you know, there's people who are for and against the town police department, and I'm neither. But what has really got me is that there is no MOU with the county at this point. And we really should have that just to put in place for both the safety and the understanding of all Ennis residents, and allows you guys to further build your budget knowing what all the costs are going to be. Officer Moore said something that struck a chord with me. He said that, and I could be quoting him wrong here, that Twin Bridges and Sheridan both have an MOU. They do not have their own police force, and they are contracted with the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department charges them, I think he said like $1,000 a month or something like that. Or nothing. Okay, I got that wrong. So, I mean, that is a huge leverage point when negotiating this MOU going forward for our town. I'm not saying pass the budget. I'm not saying don't pass the budget. It just feels like you don't have all the information at this time for what's best for our town. And again, I appreciate what you guys do. I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate this budget you put together. Thank you.
Carla Smith, and I'm a business owner in town. I also was at the meeting last week, and there was many questions asked why there was no MOU. If Lisa can get a meeting with the sheriff the day of, morning of, why can't you get a meeting with the sheriff and get a MOU in place? Why is it so hard? Why is this MOU such a problem? How can you pass a budget when you do not even know what all these extra expenses are going to be, whether you have the MOU or you don't?
Next public comment. Anything else from the room? And then I'll go to online. And
Am I able to chime in?
We're going to
Can you guys
online comment. Please identify yourself.
This is Tashina Meyer.
Go ahead with your public comment.
Well, I just wanted to comment on some of the things backing up as far as I don't think it's a lack of not being able to get meetings as people are portraying it as. Not that they can't get a meeting. It's just there's some people that don't want to make an agreement with our local officers, and they do have a job to uphold as far as the deputies. But on the other hand, when they're calling in the times that these calls are happening, I don't think they're keeping it regular as far as, you know, Lisa's numbers. She ran all over the board with it, so she's not giving us accurate numbers on what they were doing. And when the calls are coming in, what their calls are coming in for, and what time the deputies are being called on. And if they have to be called in during the hours they're not there, 86 hours is a lot to ask two people to cover. How many of you want more than 86 hours in a week? Is anybody willing to work over 43 hours in a general day? And how do you expect these cops to cover it? They don't want a third officer. You don't want them at the school. The other gentleman talked about having an HR. Well, what's HR going to do to protect your children at the school? Everything's always about the kids. What are we going to do for the kids? How are we going to protect the kids? And one of the biggest complaints I hear around the town of Ennis is, why is the cop at the school? I don't know. If you guys look around the county and you see what's happening countywide, around the state, around the nation, we are a growing county. We're a growing town. And everybody needs to pay attention to the fact that you don't want an officer around to protect your kids, to make sure that we don't have riffraff going on. You guys are crazy. I think there is a place for the cops. Now, you want things done differently? Fine, have them done differently. I think cutting your cops with the growth that we're having in town would be a high mistake of everybody there. I think you guys would cut your noses, spite your face. I think there's people that have personal, emotional vendettas with John personally, whatever that might be, to each their own. But I think you need to consider the position that you guys are wanting to cut. And when you cut things, you may never get them back. The fact that John has gone out of his way to get grants so you guys could have the extra officer, to have the extra services, and there's not a gratitude for that. There's been many things that didn't come out of the Ennis pocket. I don't think everyone needs to take it on such an emotional level. I think you guys should look at the numbers that John tried to pull out for you guys. Look at the numbers of traffic stops, of speeding tickets. How much is coming in off that revenue of the tickets that we are handing out? Those numbers need to be brought to light for you guys so that maybe you can see, is it worth having these officers? Are they doing their job? I can tell you from our shooting that was over 20 years ago on Main Street where 7 people were shot, it was over an hour and a half for the county to respond. That was a very long time. There were people bleeding. There was a person dead. Every single person was transported to the hospital by locals that were there at the shooting. The chopper couldn't land to help the people because it was a shooting, because there was nobody there to secure the premises. Now, you get rid of your town cops. We're back to that scenario. And with the growth pattern that the whole county is going through, I think that would be a large mistake for you guys to cut those. If you have personal issues, deal with the personal issues. But I think cutting your police force would be a mistake. The deputies are run too thin as it is. Get rid of 2 more officers helping them, you guys are going to see a big uptick in crime, I think. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Next comment from online. Second call for public comment from those online. Last call for public comment from those online. All right, so I'll make last call for public comment for the public hearing portion. If there's anything else, please feel free to say something. Like we said, this is a good way to work things out all the way through. I think we have a tendency to look at a budget as 23 to 24, and I do find that that has probably been the biggest pitfall that has happened in previous years. When looking through the budget, we have a tendency to look at 23 and 24. It's a 12-month thing. And as a town, we have a 1967 Galleon. And before last year, our only snowplow truck was a 1976 Chevy 2-wheel drive with no wipers and no heater. So maybe we need to, in all ways, figure out what needs to happen this year, next year, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, and 10 years from now. The master plan doesn't tell us that. The water PER does not tell us that, and it changes depending on how well the patch holds, literally. So this is our time to come together and figure out what we can do, where we can do it, to make all the services work to the best of their function. So any other comment? And like we said, there's other ways to do budget amendments later.
Kurt Cardoso. I don't live in town, but we do run a business in town. A few years ago, we were all concerned. This room was packed about the growth. We were told our infrastructure can handle it. Well, behind my building that, we lease the kitchen out of, we've had a sewer line tore up for 6 weeks. We've had water lines breaking left and right. We were told our infrastructure could handle it. I'm hearing DEQ's put more requirements on the lagoon. I sat here and I fought for the second officer, and I'm glad we got him. I called in a vehicle that was all over the road on 287 from McAllister in. Officer Fisher was parked right where he's normally parked on 287. He fell in right behind me, pulled that car over. It was a truck with a horse trailer. Lady on her phone. To me, it looked like a possible DUI. I don't know what happened with that stop, where it ended up, but I was grateful for an officer to be there before she struck somebody. I watched her almost strike a vehicle oncoming. I don't like to call things in unless it's warranted, but it's good to know that we got a local officer there that can pick up that call and jump to it right away before somebody gets hurt. I don't appreciate the fact that some of these commissioners sat here 2 years ago and told us infrastructure is in great shape when it's crumbling. It's falling apart. Eric is busting his butt trying to fix these lines. We're digging up holes all over this town to get the sewer and water lines fixed. I kind of feel like we were misled on some of these issues. Well, reality's setting in. We've got big growth on the North 40. We've got a 90-something lot subdivision going up the hill here that I'm concerned they won't even have water. I realize that's out of town limits. That's a county issue, and I don't think our county leaders are doing what they should be doing on some of these planning issues and infrastructure issues and water issues. I'm a transplant, I'll admit it firsthand, and I hate hearing the word drought. I hate hearing that residential wells are going dry. I hate hearing that a town well might go dry, and the town doesn't have enough land to plot more wells in town. I understand a third well was drilled. We're hardly getting any water out of it. That's a hard reality here. Infrastructure is huge. Having a local police force is huge. Having an officer at that school is huge, especially with today, with the amount of kids that are on these psycho medications. I know of issues at that school with bullying and everything else. I've got my own issues on putting my kids into that school, and I'm glad Officer Moore is there. That's what I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment? You don't have to. I'm not looking at you to be. It's hard to judge where we need to be without input. I think this budget process started in March. As a department heads are said, put your preliminaries together, put your wish list together, put your whatever together. And I love the input on starting earlier. I think next year will actually start pretty much this year with more long-term planning in each building in each department. Karen had concerns about carpet, and my first thought after that was, when was the library's roof put on? So there's all these subtle things that we don't remember. It seems new. It's as old as our new snowplow, 2008 library. This building, historically was a garage, so yay for us for converting to convert. But it's also got some age and got some wear and got some tear. So does all the equipment. And Eric lives in the dog pound. So there's always room for improvement, and we just got to figure a way to work together to make it happen. Okay?
Be directed to our brand new mold.
Oh, yes.
Town hall. This is how old.
Welcome to, I think it was Nelson's garage. So, any other public comment?
Brittany Hirsch. I just want to comment on a couple things, and one just came to mind, which is why I decided to stand up here. I made a probably not public comment at the work session, but an offhanded comment about resort tax, and I'm just going to bring that up again. Very few times would I ever be in favor of more taxes going to the government. However, the growth is happening. The growth is happening. Everyone says the growth is happening, and these people are coming in, using our infrastructure, using our facilities, and we don't have any more money coming in. So I think you need to grab that opportunity. I know it's hard. I don't even know what it would all take. I know it would have to be gone around about different than last time. That's all that's ever said is, well, last time it just blew up and nothing happened. So I get that it's a huge undertaking to convince business owners and community members that a resort tax may be the absolute best thing that Ennis could do. Have you ever went to a town like Ennis in any state, Montana or otherwise, that does not have a resort tax? No, because this is a tourist town, and the tourists don't care. They're going to come here anyway. They're not going to care that there's a resort tax. Do I drive from here to Colorado to visit family and not stop in a certain town to get a hotel room because there's a resort tax? No. So I would urge the commissioners to look at a resort tax that could help solve some of these problems of not having money to spend at the library. to take away from other departments because infrastructure is crumbling. I know it's a big project, and I know it would take more than just you 4 or 5 up there, but you were voted to do things, and that's one thing that I think would be a major improvement for the town and would give a lot of revenue that could be dispersed to the police department if that's what the town wants. Hey, this much percentage of this tax is going to go to funding the police department from here on out, or it's going to go to making sure the parks aren't full of thistles so that kids can actually play at them, or that, you know, the water line is piece by piece replaced and updated and Eric doesn't have to operate under crappy equipment. I mean, there's a lot of money that is people just come and spend, and they put nothing in to the town. And we all want them. We're all business owners. I mean, almost all of the commission is business owners, right? Like we want the sales, we want that, and people will still come here. But I think the visitors that come to Ennis should start paying a little bit to help keep up with this infrastructure, the growth, and replace and improve things that are in Ennis. So that would be my comment.
I'm Judy Frey. I don't live in town, but I am a board member on the library. Am I supposed to, is this on?
You are doing perfect.
Okay. I'm here in support of Karen, whom I think is an absolute jewel. It was very wounding for those of us who love the library and the services that it provides, from absolutely the youngest to the oldest citizens in the community. I know that the library is getting the amount of money that it was absolutely voted, but the fact that it's getting nothing else from the town is pretty wounding. And there have been past comments like, well, you know, have a pie sale. We don't need to fund the library, have a pie sale. The friends of the library will take care of it. I don't know if y'all understand how hurtful that is. We do have pie sales. The friends contribute an enormous amount of support to our library, but to feel like the town doesn't value it is exceedingly painful. And I guess that's what I came from out of town to say.
Mayor Nikki?
Wait.
Oh,
All right. The last couple of comments from staff and anybody else in the room, if you have something else, and then we'll kind of go into our discussion and see where we're at. All right.
So I just have a comment on Brittany's comment with the resort tax. I would second that motion very much. So I come from West Yellowstone. That definitely funded a lot of stuff down in West Yellowstone and a lot of pet projects down in West Yellowstone. It went extremely well. Legislator a couple of years ago changed how we can do resort tax. So you can only tap where tourists potentially use. So you can do leisure services, you can do hotels, and you can do dining only. So you wouldn't have to do any of the other shops or anything like that. And if you wanted to, later on, you could expand it to that. So you could start small and work your way big too. So that is permitted now under state law in order to do that. It would be a huge benefit to this town to bring in more infrastructure, and just amount of tourists that we have. I just ran a quick report, did a rough calculation. 72% of the contacts we have between April and September are from out of state. Not even just Montana, I'm talking out of state. So it just kind of gives you an idea that we're dealing with a lot of people that are not from this area that are using our resources that aren't paying for it at all, essentially. And that's what that resource tax would do, is allow them to pay for the resources that they're using.
Can you restate that number?
72%, is that what you're looking for? 72% of the contacts we made from May until the end of this month last year were out of staters. Okay. All yours, Jim.
He's froze.
I'm not froze. I wasn't sure if he said, "Oh, yours, Jim," but I was waiting for recognition from the mayor. So I just wanted for your public record. I know the commissioners. It's a very, very time-consuming, difficult process to go through, crunch numbers. You're trying to make everybody in the town happy. You're trying to plan for the future. You're trying to accommodate every potential need that you can foresee, and that's basically your job. And it's not an easy task to keep track of all the smaller details. But for the public record, just so that you have the information available, uh, your town actually does provide HR, accounting, and payroll services for the library. So the library doesn't just get, just what is in the mill levies, okay? And you also, as a town, you carry and provide the insurance for all of the library employees and for the library itself through the Montana Municipal Insurance Association. So it's more accurate to say that the town does provide services and benefits beyond what the residents pay through their mill levy. The information that I have available as well, just for your record, so that you have a good public record here, is that the library actually had a cash surplus of $41,000 last year. So again, I'm not advocating for or against anything. Obviously, I advocate that you continue funding your police department. Obviously, I think that's, public health, safety, and welfare. Those are your essential duties as a town, local government. Public safety. That's a primary role of what your charter, what your statutory responsibility is. And your Ennis Police Department, under leadership of Chief John Moore, is providing that public safety. He is the SRO, the Student Resource Officer. And as far as we know, where does delinquency start? Where does crime start? It starts at a younger age. And, John does an incredible job of intervention. His presence there, he's appreciated by the students. He's appreciated by the parents and the students as well. But what I just want to wrap up, as your town attorney, I know that, your Mayor Nikki Haas, she's probably the best thing that has happened in your town, local government, as long as I've been working for the town. And I'm going into my 8th or 9th year as your town attorney. And I've worked with a lot of different administrations. Mayor Nikki Haas deserves, like a round of applause. Maybe at the end of your meeting tonight, everybody will stand up and applaud her for getting this budget passed, because I know you're going to do the right thing as a town commission. You are going to pass a budget tonight. Why? Because compliance and leading by example and showing that the town is going to comply with its statutory and fiscal responsibilities, and it's going to pass a budget. It's not going to go into overtime. It's not going to go past its deadline. It's not going to allow any other types of defaults or unforeseen impacts that could arise, losing grants, losing credit status, whatever it is, getting hauled in front of the AG's office, in an extreme case. But you're not going to do that, because you're a responsible commission. You're going to follow the leadership of your mayor, and you're going to pass the budget tonight. And if you need to come back and amend it, you can do that. And that's all I have for you guys. Good luck. Thank you.
All right. With all that being said, and no other public comment, We'll close the public hearing portion, maybe take a little 15-minute breather, say hi to the town deer, see what they have to say about everything on our way out, and then come back and finish the rest of this. Sound good? All right. Thank you. Yeah, potty break, exactly.
Uh-oh. I had to go in. I had a bad shoulder earlier this year. I did a mountain bike race with no back brakes, and that means I'm all up on my handlebars. And had to go to the chiropractor and 3 massages later to get taken care of. So. Oh yeah.
So does Maria.
Yeah.
Why did you stop?
I get to go first, Craig.
You had to go where first?
I get to talk first.
Oh. We're not going to be here till 11, are we?
I'm not going to be talking
Like
about
last time.
No. That's one of my. Not that I can't talk a lot about nothing, but when it comes to factual stuff, I'm fairly limited in the amount of information. It was always one of my favorites. James Greenbaum would always be like, memorize the town code book. I think I've read it twice, and I remember about that much. Yeah.
The thing about Ennis, doing this kind of work, timelines are out. Timelines are out. Of course. I know. I give you crap all the time. I know. Man, I just had what I learned.
Last I heard, some lady came outside when I was working on Josie's building, and she was like, "You're shaking our whole entire building." I was like, "Poor Eric."
I'm not mad at you. I just wish that when you started, you would have said, hey, this could take a month. Instead of, we'll be in and out in a week, man.
My.
Yeah, I remember that. That's what I had that bad. But it would have been easier if you would have said, hey, this is probably going to take us.
That's a tough one when you get so many variables that come in. My office lady, CC Weldon, I think you both maybe know CC. She used to like represent for Jan Genera. She called me up the other day and she was like, I am not doing any more scheduling and I am not doing any more estimates. And I was like, CC, I was like, feel free to put my name in front of all of these. Like, here's what Mr. Hardy says is going to be the number or the schedule. Because it's tough when trying to speak to schedule has been an absolute nightmare for everybody.
And what I was told was exactly that. When you reach the service line and it's broke all the way to
But that would be the county revenue.
Right. I'm left with, wow, do I tell all these people, kiss my ass, my life's good, you need to fix yours, or do we just fix it? Yes, there's a lot of weight in that went.
Yeah.
So much more.
I didn't know any of this was going on.
Let me tell you. I know you like come out and you're like a kid dog back there. You're just like, I'm just like, all right, I'm not gonna kick it anymore.
Yeah, I was definitely, I see Josie's my neighbor and you are too, but I see Josie out walking her dog and I always tend to like stop. I'm just like, is that swimming pool in your back alley yet? And she's like, no, it's not filled yet. Whatever. And I try not to engage her in that. So Eric, I think you need to go into drywall. It's much simpler. You just attach sheets onto the. Don't yell, Larry. It's all good. Well, I'll go first. You can add to some, whatever, add to all of it, you know. Hmm. Yeah, no, agreed. What'd you say?
I said I probably still smell like an ashtray, but I wash my hands and I smoke today over that corner.
hangs out right beside that car. That's his home. Good start.
So, the public hearing's done. We will open the regular part of this meeting. And start with roll call of commission. Mr. Abraham.
Here.
Here.
And Commissioner Paulton will not be with us this evening. My deepest condolences to her and her family as they experienced a loss this weekend. So please understand that this was not something that she could undertake at this
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I can't even tell anymore.
Can you see your frequency?
For a minute. All right, we'll say it's on. My lights are on.
You'll like it.
Could you step closer to your mouth? Thank you. All right, now to the discussion. I'm going to leave this to you guys, commission, on where we need to go from here. Corey.
So I would like to second all of the commendations, or third all of the commendations for Mayor Nikki. I've been here for 5.5 years now, and I think, we've definitely we've doubled the number of meetings that we've had for sure. And the amount of legislation the town has passed is record setting in 1 year's time. Also for dealing with all of the disasters that we've had this year. We've had plenty of items happen, and commend the town staff as well on that. But we're here to talk about budget. So I just want to talk about, reflect on the past month, and I guess just my takeaways from how everything, probably even longer than the past month. We've, budget. I do remember in March when Mayor Nikki brought up to any items that now is the time to start thinking about any items that we have to bring to our wish list and whatever else. But I guess the first item I would like to talk about is our mid-year budget review, which I don't know that we necessarily had one of those this year. And it is something that is written in our town code book under the general provisions 3.02. It says the mayor will call a general town meeting to report on affairs and financial condition of the city. And I just happened to be looking through our town code book when I was like, what is my job anyways? Just so I could come here and be clear and kind of help me write a spiel to talk about. Yeah, I guess the second item I would like to talk about, and I guess this is ultimately just regarding several different things, just the MOU discussions that I feel weren't really happening as far as all of the commissioners are concerned. And the grant application, hearing about a third police officer kind of in discussion and not having it like thrown in my lap. Here's what we're talking about for the future of the town. I feel like those are important items, and I want that transparency. I want to hear what those discussions are. A grant. I threw together kind of this parallel earlier today. A grant. Well, actually, I might be quoting you. A grant for the city's water and sewer, it should be treated no differently than a grant for a third police officer. You're adding a water tower, you're adding a police officer. Both are infrastructure building items. So yeah, just more discussion on that, because I know it's times are just getting super busy for all of us. I see it on the customer service end of things where people are like, why aren't you, they're just getting upset easily because everyone is pushing to get more done faster. Yeah, we're all busy individuals these days. I want to reiterate what Karen said last week about every time we add another person or enlarge a department, it affects all budget lines. So I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really been like super. I feel like I've went through the motions with budgets on years past. It's always seemed exceptionally overwhelming to me. I'm not a big numbers guy. But yeah, I think we need to realize that when you pull from this fund or pull from this fund, it affects other funds. There's a finite amount of money that we have to work with. So that's why we're talking about budget. Regarding the MOU, that's another transparency item. The commission all received email correspondence from the sheriff, just sent as a kind of a mass email, and it was that correspondence between the mayor and the sheriff, just talking about coming to an agreement, or it was ultimately just kind of an argument. On when? On August 21st. So that was kind of when I was like, I may have said a few 4-letter words, the top of my lungs in my vehicle. I was like disturbed that, like, the sheriff's department and our police department are here to protect and serve. That's their job description. So why are they not able to come to an agreement? And ultimately, I did call the undersheriff, Craig Schroeder, who I don't know real well, but I know his son. I've chatted with him a handful of times and had good conversations with him. And I just asked him, Craig, tell me what's going on from your perspective. So ultimately, after he got done talking, I was just like, here's what I would really like to have happen. I would like for our police department and the sheriff's department to get together and have a conversation and speak cop jargon. What do you call that? Yeah, just police speak. So, I mean, there are so many things. I am not an expert on that stuff. I'm not an expert on a lot of things. I am a drywall contractor. I am an expert at that. And I can talk about that for hours, but you can come see me after hours. Yeah. So back to the MOU. I personally do not feel comfortable holding the entire budget hostage or giving an ultimatum to Mayor Nicky, who is our negotiator with the sheriff. She's conducting the negotiations. I don't know enough about it other than just reading some email correspondence and having discussions with herself, talked with John for a little bit, and Craig Schroeder. What I would like to propose is the following conditions on a budget approval. And I guess the first one is speaking back to just manipulation of monies, different places for different reasons. I still guess I'm kind of at a loss for why the library did not receive their requested funds, or at least some funds. So I guess my conditions on this, on budget approval, I would require, and these are discussion points. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this as well, obviously, but I would require that the mayor find the additional funding requested by the library and put it in place by budget amendment. Number two, put the discussion of an additional officer on the agenda for every meeting until further determined by the council, so we can just discuss it and its progression. Number three, Brittany's point, I would just ask that we look at moving forward with resort tax education. Because there's, the last time it got turned down, it was definitely, the majority of the businesses were against it. But I think looking at our town as a tourist town, which, you heard what Officer Moore said, 72% of the contact for the police department are from out-of-state individuals from 1 May to September 31.
Rough estimate, please.
Rough estimate. So yeah, that's how I would suggest moving forward. And I know we've had a lot of numbers and stuff thrown in front of us here in the last hour and a half. So other than that, that's all I have to say.
Are we going in line? Okay. I don't think there's any. Go for it.
Sorry, I don't have my thoughts very well organized. I definitely agree with Karen that we need to start this much earlier and we need to work together. It should be a collaboration for everybody. Everybody needs to be involved. Personally, I find the lack of communication on as being a council member infuriating sometimes. You know, water main broke down the street and I have no idea for 4 days or a week or until the next meeting, and then I have to ask about it. I know everybody's busy. I totally understand that, but communication is lacking. I feel the same way about the grant that was put in. I feel like that should have been put forward before the taxpayers, before to everybody, before it was just applied to. I understand that the commission could still say no to it, but that's more transparency. It should have been on our radar. It should have been brought to a meeting and put in public comment or in front of public comment. And I'm going to go back to the library for just a minute because our town attorney had brought up the point that the library receives benefits and health benefits, but so does every other department. And they get what they wanted in the budget, and the library has to take out of their cash reserves. I feel like there could have been more effort to try and work together, which we should do as a town. I have various serious concerns about the MOU. I understand we could do a budget amendment to fix that, but that's a huge chunk of change. I don't think that should be taken lightly, and I don't think that we should approve the budget today with that big of an amount at stake. Where are you going to pull that money from? Should it happen? Are we going to borrow it from Merrick's reserves in water and sewer? I mean, right. So where's that money going to come from? I think that needs to be much more thoroughly investigated. I would love to be a part of that. I would love to be any communication. Like Corey said, we didn't receive any communication about it August 21st. And I had asked through a few meetings, how's that going? How's that going? But I guess then that's my fault for not pursuing that and making myself involved, because I didn't know if that was my place to be involved. I think it is. I think council members should be involved in a lot of these discussions, a lot of the MOUs, a lot more discussions. And I know you work a lot of hours and you're the mayor, and I appreciate everything that you've done also. So I don't know how we can be better about I mean, I can stop in on Mondays, but I can't do that every single Monday. It would just be nice to be more informed about what's happening at town, what's happening. I feel like we're not getting all the email communication that we should be getting. Yeah, I've gone to some training and I'm trying to be more prepared and better at what I'm doing. But the budget is Greek. I have no idea. I'm not great with numbers either. So if we could start this earlier, that would be great. And I understand the frustration from the clerks and everything when they want to know, if you want something on the budget, let me know. Well, I don't know what I would add to the budget. So, because I don't know what I'm looking at with the budget. So I don't know how I would input besides more in-depth line items, more communication about what could be considered frivolous spending. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I'm really not a public speaker either. And everybody works hard. Like Nikki, you deserve a round of applause too, but so does everybody. Eric working overtime, John, Ginger, Maria, everybody deserves credit for where credit is due. I'm sure I'm going to remember stuff that I forgot to mention, but I think just as a whole, I'm very hesitant to continue forward with this budget with that And like Karen said last meeting, when you have to adjust the budget, it trickles down and affects all the apartments. And that's just too big of a number to not have in the budget.
Okay, well, I echo Nikki and Corey on a lot of this. I'm not great at public speaking either. My thoughts were really good earlier today, but there isn't transparency and there isn't communication. I don't think that the decision to cut the library from the general fund should have been just a mayor decision. I think that's a commission decision. And again, I don't know that for sure, but that's my feelings. It should have been discussed. And I think as we sit here tonight with chunk of change, big chunk of change, whatever we want to refer to, there's a lot of money at stake here tonight. And feeling a little bit of pressure that we really need to approve the budget tonight. And it's interesting to me that we're feeling that pressure. Why hasn't the pressure been placed to get this MOU done? We're pressured here to approve this budget, but we have a huge agreement sitting out there not taken care of. So yeah, I have a real hard time with that amount of money at stake to move forward. That's a big missing piece. And I think that we have not been informed and we have not been included and led correctly in regards to the MOU. And I think that's all, but we'll let Greg go and then I'll see what else I can come up with.
So I probably echo a lot of what Corey had to say. I think the discussions would be beneficial if they started earlier, and we had a little bit more time to work through a lot of the details. As far as the library goes, I don't see why we have such difficulty finding some funding for the library at all of this. So if it's something that's been done in the past year after year, I don't know that they're asking for a huge amount, but I don't see why we can't find something somewhere for them. For sure that the MOU, we all keep coming back to that. That's a big, that's obviously a big issue to get that resolved. Can it be resolved if we approve the budget? Can that be done by amendment? Can that be changed or updated?
Where's the money going to come from? I think it's too much. Sorry, not my turn to talk.
Ginger, who has been through more budgets than anybody in the room, probably more of us than all of us combined sometimes, I think.
However it works out, whether it would be one that the two departments are working together, or the thought has been put out there that you replace and just go with Madison County. Am I understanding that correctly?
What's the question? I don't understand what you asked.
That, well,
was that one of the options?
That for under $300,000, Madison County will take over law enforcement for the town of Ennis.
I don't think that's not the point of this whole meeting.
Okay, but what I'm talking about is that I'm getting to the numbers. So, I mean, if that were the case, you would do away with your police department and you would have that funding then. I mean, that funding would stay in place.
Minus 50,000.
So it's
minus.
I'm just trying to point out that.
Well, even just to look at Lisa's numbers, just because they're here, dispatch service would be $100,000. So if we have to end up paying $100,000, where's that going to come from?
Okay, so maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I think so, because I don't.
Why would we? I'm sorry.
And I guess
At some point, like I have to say, as John pointed out, none of the other services that are dispatched are charged anything.
But
Nobody is charged. First of all, they have a statutory obligation.
Nope.
Yes, it is. They have a statutory obligation to cover calls within town, as stated in the Attorney General's opinion and in Montana code. So they have an obligation to be here. We don't need an MOU for them to be here. We've had one, but we don't need one. For dispatch services, they are required, again, to provide us with the initial call for service. They are required to provide us with that call, just like they provide everybody else with. If we're not using dispatch for any services above and beyond what anybody else in this county is using them for, why should we pay for dispatch services?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I think that's why we need to have a meeting with you, the county, Nikki, and us, all of us. It's not between you and Nikki to decide
So
this. It's
So statutorily, the mayor, and Jim can back me up on this one, the mayor is the one who's going to negotiate it. That is her job. So that being aside,
If you want it, you got it.
that being aside, we don't need to budget for anything right now. The money that is in the police department's budget is from last year's MOU payment. We pay them at the beginning of the next budget cycle for the MOU. Okay, so the money that is in the police department's budget right now for other purchase services or for other contracted services, sorry, that money is the money that we owe the sheriff's department for last year when the MOU is in effect. We pay them at the end of the fiscal year. We don't pay them at the beginning of the fiscal year. We don't pay them during the fiscal year. We pay them at the end of the fiscal year, which means that next year, if we decide to have an MOU and if they decide to charge us some astronomical amount, that would be in next year's budget. That would not be in this year's budget.
why haven't we had this conversation before?
I had this conversation with you at the budget meeting and I explained that to you. When I was there 2 times ago at the budget meeting, I explained to you that the money that's in there for contract services is the money that is paid for last year's contract when the contract was up. I had that discussion. We can play it back on YouTube if you'd like. So that discussion we had, and I made that very clear that we pay backwards for that. So this budget year, we pay them for what we used for last year, which in that MOU is 2 full-time officers. So that's how we pay them. So if we decide to settle on an MOU, we wouldn't pay them until the next budget year rolls around. Yeah, it's in the budget. Who's got a budget sheet under? Yep, correct. So that's our payment. That's our payment to them for dispatch services for last year when the MOU was in effect. It's part of the MOU, and part of the MOU states each full-time officer is 1 mil, each half-time officer is a half a mil, and that's part of the agreement is we pay them at the end of the fiscal year.
John, this is James Green, town attorney.
James,
Yes.
Nikki is asking a clarification of John.
Yeah, okay.
In years previous, what did we pay? How much?
It's based off of a mil. So in the MOU, it's based off of a mil. So every full-time officer was 1 mil. Every half-time officer was a half a mil. In the previous years, there was 1 year when Ashland left, and it was only me. So therefore, that number went significantly down because that was only 1 mil.
So if it's $8,500 per year to contract with the sheriff's department, why would we? That's not that big of an expense. There's got to be more to it.
Because the sheriff canceled the MOU because they wanted more money from the town. Mm-hmm.
So previously, before the current expired MOU, each town in Madison County paid 17 mills into the sheriff's department. And then in 2018, Roger Thompson canceled that MOU, or I guess renegotiated it, and to say, we're not going to charge for anything except for specialized services, obviously the dispatch services or not. So, and I think now the issue is that the sheriff's office is feeling that, that canceling it by the previous sheriff is not sufficient. And there are concerns about how, things are progressing, and they just want to have, I think it would be most advantageous to have a big powwow with them, with all the stakeholders available, and to talk about this. Because even though this budget, they charge you in arrears, we're still going to be racking up the charges going into the next budget. And so having a clear thing and a strategic plan, all of that is really helpful. But in 2008, the previous 17 mills from each town in.
And it was 17 mills. That is correct. The previous, before 2018, the reason it was canceled was because that attorney general's opinion was found, and it went to the county attorney at the time. The county attorney said, whoa, wait a minute, we can't do that because of what this attorney general's opinion says. So we can charge for dispatch services, but we can't charge for law enforcement services because it's their state, the state law that says they have to provide services. Y'all pay taxes for them to be here, just like everybody else does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So the double taxation issue was removed, and they got rid of that and just put, okay, we're going to charge you one mil per officer for dispatch services. And that's how that came about. And just to correct Lisa, the MOU did not expire. It was canceled by the sheriff. So rather than the sheriff coming here and saying, hey, I would like to just sit down and talk, he just literally sent a letter to the mayor saying we're canceling the MOU. This current, right? Yes, to Mayor Nikki. When the sheriff canceled the MOU, he did not come and say, hey, I want to talk. He did not come anything. He literally came and handed her and myself a letter and mailed it certified return receipt that said, we're canceling the MOU.
So why do you think the relationship has soured between the town of Ennis and the
That's
sheriff?
okay. At
Okay, I
this
guess
point,
that is
we are at the budget, and I know there's a lot going on with this. Comment. I do love the side ones, and it's all relevant in its own tone. There's a lot of dynamics, especially when you get 6 lawyers with 6 opinions. I do have to say, I love you, James, but you're not the only lawyer that I talk to about this. So I do have several opinions that basically told me to stand my ground. I don't know if that's right, wrong, or otherwise. I go with professional opinions because I am not fluent in legalese. I am very compassionate about trying to make sure that it's even. And I'm sorry, but I have seen a lot that happens for Sheridan that doesn't get to happen for Ennis. Whether it be road department, whether it be police department. I know we're the big dog of the 4 incorporated. We also contribute the most to general fund for that reason, to the county general fund for that reason.
So, Nikki, did I suggest that you not stand your ground?
Oh,
James.
I don't think it's about that right now.
No.
So what I'm
I thought-
saying, that this budget is what we are reviewing. And I understand that there are concerns. Eric, today, did the gazebo try to fall down? It did. And you know what? I have a feeling that the river might pull another stunt. And that was $7,000 that actually came out of general fund when it was supposed to come out of emergency mills. Time and time again, life throws this town a little bit of a twist. And every time we figure out how we need to accommodate that twist. And I don't see how this is any different than a flood, a main pipe breaking, or any other that comes along the way. Ennis is the most resilient place I have ever seen, and it comes back with a way, remarkably, whether it's bumper stickers that say love wins or whatever it takes. This town will pull through one way or another.
This is something we could have better planned for.
Yes.
Or had some
And-
explanation, or had somebody tell us what the hell is legal and what's not.
Okay.
That I've heard sides. I don't know that it's all about hearing sides. It's about I don't know. It's about proof, isn't it? And like why can't we just settle it?
Okay.
I think because we're doing this instead of somebody saying, all right, we need to get this figured out. We're going to just keep doing this. And we're going to say the county doesn't play nice. And they probably say we don't play nice. Okay, this isn't the sandbox. This is real stuff.
Okay. So, for the rest of this budget, you guys are you told me where you want changes. I very much, when I looked at the original budget, went, why in God's green earth, in all the decades of this town, have we never had a repair budget for public works, let alone a replacement budget for anything in public works? So it's really easy to see things that aren't there, honestly. Like, the budget looked good. We've always done this thing for general fund out of the library because it's always been done. And then you start looking for the holes that are there. And then I will have to admit, when I actually noticed that hole and went, that really explains a 1967 galleon and a 1976 two-wheel drive snowplow? Wow. But in that panic, I didn't think of the roof at the library. I still don't know the answer to when the roof was last done at the library, and now I'm like, we need to go through this again. I do need to go through this again, and every single department needs to have a capital improvement for the portion that is them. We have a little bit towards facilities, but not really. There is not a capital improvement plan that is legitimate all the way around. That was one of the very first things the first year that I taxed Brandy with starting to get a hold on. We were out of date in every single way that we could be out of date, minus the master plan. The water PER was out of date, wastewater is out, streets is out, no planning board, the growth policy is out of date. Pretty much every defining document that we needed was out of date. So now we are struggling to play catch up in every way that we can. And if we really wanted to look at it, we should have planned $40,000 for capital improvement, and then tried to, see if we could get 15,000 in grants towards that capital improvement or the growth policy. There is 7 amazing people that are tackling it the best they can to help us out with what little resources they have. We've never had a planning board in the last, I don't know, briefly there was one for a stint. So that was new to this budget too, as a planning board. So taxed them with helping with a growth policy with a budget of 11,000 and some change. And that is also to include their education to figure out how this all works. Yeah. He's smirking over there going, whoo, that is not enough money to figure all that out. But they are making it because they have grit and they have tenacity. And I'm saying we can do this. And I'm saying I do need to readjust the library and I need to find a capital improvement plan. And there was a strategic plan done by the library that I still haven't seen the result of. We talk about communications, that goes all which ways. How many emails do I receive from the council on a regular basis? Actually, from them, that guy right there pretty much consistently talks to me all the time. One way or another, We don't have to agree. We have to respect each other's communications and hear each other's voice, not to respond, but to listen and put that thought into the process and how it's going to work. So I went back through and Ginger went back through and we're looking at the budget again and again and again. And we think we found some answers for the library. That's what I'm saying. In my recommendation, it would be to adopt the budget, hold another public hearing for the budget amendment, see what we can do. And the last, I'm not doing it. I'm not giving up my Florida trip. This will be the first vacation I've taken in over a decade. I'm doing it. I can pretend it's a vacation. So that would make it the 29th. Nope, that's the wrong calendar. The 26th. To hold a budget amendment hearing. And by that time, we will have the MOU answer that you want for it. And I think I might not be able to come with 11, the 5 extra mills, because there were holes that were definitely identified that we needed to fill. And you have to remember that our increase from last year was 22,000. That's for everybody to share. That was it. That was the difference. Last year we got to levy 99 something mills. This year the state says you get to do 70, 75. So while people say your taxes go up, the state also says we can only levy so much to keep it in that reasonable range. So that means our net is the 22. And so that's where it's at. And I think, I don't know, at least hit Karen's benchmark of 9 total. Maybe, I think. And then make sure that in every future budget that there is a legitimate replacement plan. I mean,
I think that goes back to Karen's point of each department having. I think that goes back to Karen's point of each department. It's really hard to plan a replacement, whether it be roads or whatever, without knowing how many mills you're going to get. And I mean, there's been some years that, the library got, I don't know, $43,000 from the town of Ennis, and now they're getting 0. So you can't effectively plan without knowing the number of mills that you're going to get. And I know that varies with the state as well, but I think it, in the town of Manhattan, what they did was they put, the police department in their own fund. And so then that way they have to stay there. The library has to stay within this, or, administrative has to stay within this, city court, roads and maintenance. And so you're not siphoning off that money from year to year. But then you can plan for, and having a strategic plan will be paramount to reaching your goals of replacement of the snowplow and whatever. But I think that's what the town residents are offered, having a plan of this defect, replacing the deferred maintenance on that.
All right.
So I had one other, just clarification or comment.
Sorry, Craig.
It's okay. It's okay. All the discussion is good. This is for Chief Moore.
Yes, sir.
A third officer would be evening coverage?
Yeah, it would be. So third officer would end up being nights. I would have to look at the actual calls if we were to do a third officer to see if it was like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something to that nature. But it would be over the weekend on night coverage.
Over the weekend only?
Well, they only work, if they work 10-hour shifts, they only work 4 days. If they work 12-hour shifts, they work 1 week, 4 days, 1 week, 3 days. So that just depends on how it falls. Yeah, it would be the one person, and one extra person could not cover 24 hours a day, or I'm sorry, an entire week of night coverage.
Okay, council, other budget questions, addressed issues, holes that, and again, the more eyes you have on this, the better it is. How many sets of eyes have reviewed a budget and never found that there was no maintenance budget for public works or no repair?
So where did
Ever?
that, also, where did that money come from? Did that come from general fund or was that,
That's general, public works is general fund.
but he's got how many millions in cash reserves? Why could it not have been taken from
Millions in cash reserve.
that? No, he told us he had a bunch of money. In
What was that in?
cash reserves, I
What fund?
thought. Oh, water. and sewer.
Enterprise fund. Enterprise fund is not part of general fund.
Okay, didn't know that. Had no freaking idea. Sorry.
It's like why ambulance, when there's the ambulance, it
Yeah.
was entirely
Yeah.
separate.
All the time. Yep. Just like I don't understand why the library is not on the general fund. Their wages don't come out of the general fund. And every time it's explained to me, it still doesn't make sense, but I'm the idiot that can't understand it.
No, you're not the idiot that
No,
can't understand
is.
it.
So
The,
to explain for previous things, the water and sewer, if they use a truck, one of their trucks, you have to calculate the percentage that is used from water or sewer. So say they use water and sewer, you know.
And I kind of,
20%
and I understand that.
So that's what I think had happened in the past for certain equipment or whatever, is they would divvy it up based on the percentage of where it was.
Right.
So because water and sewer stays in its own system.
Right.
Yeah, and then the library is its own beast all amongst, it's saying it's run by a board and they have their permissive mills. They get mills from the county. And then some years they get, general fund dollars as well. So there was a vote, or not permissive mills, excuse me, voted on mills. So those mills, the voters passed, they give 6 mills to the library. They get half mil from the county.
And we just approve those.
Yep. The county, yes, the county did that, so that's where their wages come from. The library.
General fund doesn't fund the library. There, any mills that go to them, if the town were to put mills towards the library, it would come from that mill calculation that I do, Nikki. It tells us how many mills we're gonna get for the year. And then those have to be broken out to general fund, library, planning board, PERS, health insurance, or employee benefits. So those 76.85 mills had to cover, but you take out however many mills out of that 76 and basically assign it to whatever fund it's going to.
Okay.
and we don't put value to a lot of interdepartment contributions. I've seen other budgets that do that, like the library is actually metered and the money is paid out of a library fund to the enterprise fund. We don't do that. We're a little mini family. You just do your water, you do you. That's how it goes. Karen calculated how much time for vacuuming. I don't think I've ever asked for a calculation from Eric on public works time to mow and shovel the sidewalks. It's a contribution from general fund in the amount of hours that is given and not put on the library budget. It's not taken out of their budget and what they're given. That is basically another general fund item that is donated without any compensation.
Just like the library building, there's no rent. There's no charge.
And
for
it
rent,
goes
no
all,
charge
and
for
you can go
water.
all the way around, like facilities can charge water and sewer for their space. I mean, you see other municipalities. Exactly. You can go all the way around square footage for square footage, and it makes it very interesting and very almost cutthroat, I feel like, in ways. I've seen like the state they rent out buildings, and but that's where I think there are things that are forgotten that are contributed. And if you want to be realistic, there's a lot of that between lots of departments. Karen does a lot of public relations that's not necessarily, it's almost like, it's not facilities, but it's almost its own administration. When she posts the agenda, when she's always on top of postings and exceptionally willing to help out with any kind of communication. Like there's another, but does she tack that on to like, this is how many hours I posted things on the board for everybody? She doesn't. You see what I mean? And I like that the departments are willing to help each other out. John, as soon as Karen said, like, there's some IT stuff that's out of my wheel well. What does he feel about it? I asked him. He's like, not a problem. Well, I'll get in touch with her. We'll figure it out. And if I can help, I can help. Let's keep it that way. I mean, we can define lines if you want. We can do whatever you want with the budget. We broke Black Mountain out. Just understand that all of that. I also authorized extra overtime for Ginger because this budget and the changes that you wanted from the last work session take time.
We wouldn't be in that boat though if we had started earlier, right?
The changes are changes and the time is the time it takes in Black Mountain. It doesn't matter. A change is a change. It takes that amount of time, whether it's in March or if it's in October, September, June, however you want to do it. And during work session, if you said, this is how I want it. I'm not the final on this. My job is to prepare a budget. It is meant to have input. It is meant to have input from department heads. It is meant to have input from the public. It is meant to have input from you. You can always say, how's that going? Can I see where you're at? Sure. Come sit down with me. If you want me to come in on the weekend, I'll do it. It's been offered. So that's where this budget is at. That's what I think is best. And I do think that there's room. I mean, I'm going to have to get nitty gritty. And then there are things that come up like the gazebo today where I was like, we have nothing in parks. How am I supposed to build a gazebo out of nothing? These things are going to happen. And we do what we do and we adjust as we need to. We prioritize. Maybe the gazebo isn't. It's not. So I'm like, maybe this is, sometimes you take that thing and go, maybe this is a blessing in disguise and we need to honor Granny Ennis in a different way. That's not that gazebo.
Bathroom.
Anyway, but you see what I'm saying? We can do this and we can do this in an amendment. And I think I found it. There's some, and we might have to get back to our commission project and donate our own paint someday, but whatever. I'll donate the paint.
So what is something, I don't know how, if it could happen, how it could happen, if something happened with the sheriff and the MOU and we had to pay him $200,000, where would that come?
You have to be reasonable within budgetary constraints. And you need to look at what a county mill is worth. What is a county mill worth this year versus a county mill last year? I mean, we're looking at our budget and picking it apart, and I know that there's need for funds everywhere. And I do think that resort tax is another way that we can alleviate some stress here, there, and yonder. But I know that a half of a mill, county mill, was worth 60.
No. Well, a half a county bill this year is $170,900 and some dollars.
What was?
So a full mill, you're looking at close to $342,000. Is what a
Nikki?
full mill.
And that's almost 100,000 difference in a mill from last year per mill for the county. That's a lot different than our chunk here, just saying. We're Little Fry. There's a lot of difference there. And they have a lot more to cover. They have lots of roads, lots of coverage area. sharing resources is the most economical way for everybody in a lot of ways. I'd like to see more of that. Thus far, that has very much been resisted.
So is the answer to your question, Emil? That's how, if that came back and we that was night, that's where that would be.
I guess so.
Mm. I'm saying 200,000 seems ridiculous.
Okay, well, being ridiculous, if that were that, how would we make a
How do you-
budget amendment and where would that money come from? I don't care if it's realistic or unrealistic. I really don't. Where would that money come from to make a budget amendment?
Why would we make an agreement to pay them for services that they are required to provide, that they are by law required to give us? Why
Have we
would
done it previously?
we have, but why, just because we've done it in the past, why should we do it now?
Make sure our ass is covered?
Nikki, may I just,
Wait. Okay, we're to this MOU portion.
So, and I just want to cover something with all the commissioners, a comment that Lisa made earlier. Just so you guys know, working with the sheriff's department and deputies has not changed from EPD standpoint and the county standpoint. We still share resources. We still back each other up on calls. We still communicate. We still share information. None of that has changed with any of this stuff. What's that?
You share training?
The sheriff blocked Matt from the defensive tactics training because he said it's a liability and their insurance company won't allow that. I'm sending him to firearms instructor, so we have our own firearms instructor in case he chooses not to. And they say it's a liability on their side having another agency there. That's their choice. That's fine. I have contingency plans to back up anything should they say, sorry, we're not going to dispatch you at all. We have a plan for that.
But he already going to that training, right? Isn't that what the $350 was in the last?
To Billings, yeah. So we have that. We have those contingencies in place. I don't just go off half cocked. I just don't go, well, we hope it works. I have.
But that's what I feel like we're doing.
But why would we pay them for something they have to provide us?
How do we know 150% that they have to provide it?
The attorney general.
I think it's because so much public is hearing that they're not giving us coverage. We're hearing as business owners, we're not getting coverage from you. That's what we're hearing, and that's where our frustrations are coming from, therefore causing us to ask questions on why aren't we being protected? Is it gonna be $75 with a 4-hour minimum? I mean, these are things we've heard.
And that's a question for the sheriff, why he is not meeting his statutory requirement if you feel he is not providing you coverage.
I'm going to say this. We got 2 officers. Why don't we have a staggered schedule? I work downtown late at night. The amount of drunks leaving and hitting the road, it's not about the calls you receive. It's also about being proactive. Why don't we have a staggered schedule?
Because 86% of our calls last year, Kirk, came in during the day.
But a lot of your flack would go away if we had a staggered schedule, if we had some sort of coverage into the evenings. And yes, maybe the sheriff should be providing some coverage. I see the deputies are in town. I'm serving till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. They come up. I don't know exactly where they're parking or what they're doing, but I can say there's a good amount of people leaving these bars intoxicated. Okay. And they're getting in their vehicles. We got 2 officers. We don't have a staggered schedule.
Yeah, we have to go where the calls take us. And I will talk to the mayor about looking at a different schedule plan. However, what happens is if we're not here during the day, then we have 10 people complaining that we didn't run any calls during the day, that we didn't show up at all, and then maybe we get one night call. Maybe we get one night call that night. The past 3 nights, there have been 0 calls on the board.
But if you were out there, you might have got it from the driver.
We might have.
If you were out there, you might have found somebody vandalizing private property.
And we haven't had any vandalism complaints. You understand what I'm saying?
But you got to start getting preemptive here. And a lot of the flack that your department's receiving is you guys are working the same schedule.
Same days.
At the school at the same time.
No, we are not. We do not work the same days, guys.
You were at the football game.
Football game is a special event at the request of the school. That is.
Were you both?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Officer Fisher would have left. I would have stayed at the school.
I'm just an outsider looking in, chief, and that's what I see.
Okay,
You know,
I
a staggered
appreciate.
schedule might alleviate a lot of the issues you're having with
Okay,
public.
I appreciate the input.
That on my overwhelming board of awesomeness here.
I'm not gonna stay here till midnight or 11 or 10.
Okay. All right. So back to you guys. I've heard from Corey and several library, and I want the ability to do that. And I think I can in some ways. I don't know if we're going to meet all of it. And I want to know, I'm going to ask each department for basically an assessment, inventory assessment. When was the major siding structure, those kinds of things done? They're going to know. So the best, that'll at least give us some kind of guidepost to where we need to go. And again, I think a lot of this has been looked at as a 1 year, 12-month thing. We are definitely seeing repercussions of not. I mean, I don't know where you start when a grader is. What's a new grader these days? I know it's probably a little bit more than what we got.
$250 on eBay.
250.
I love
And we have never set aside a dime for that.
Does any other commissioner feel at ease with the MOU, what's been told to us? And
Not-
we're taxpayer for that matter.
Not in the least bit.
No, because it's different information from each part. I mean, one's
We're
telling us
hearing
what-
this
yes,
side.
One's telling us what's good when it's coming from them, and the other's saying what's good when it's coming from them.
Absolutely.
I don't understand why they can't join forces and get in the same room and figure it out. Why is it so difficult?
It's public
It's been
safety
asked.
that we're
Why haven't
just,
you done it?
Okay.
that didn't get the focus it should have had. And here we are. And we would be in the wrong to not pass the budget. But yet, there's so much.
We have to pass the budget.
We don't have to.
Somebody else said we do.
You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You do need to completely understand the ramifications when you make decisions. Because, not to be mean, but after the claims,
How many late fees did you get?
it is a complete disregard in my mind that services were provided by various people, from cleaning toilets to filling in to patching roads, and you said as a general, no. I could have that morning as the business owner that serviced those vehicles, put a mechanic's lien, and taken 3 of the vehicles out of service immediately. And that would have been granted without hesitation from any court, because I had the bill and I had the minutes that said you weren't going to pay it. Not to be personal at this moment, we worked nights and weekends to ensure that 2 police vehicles could get back on the road in a timely manner. You chose not to pay it. There's a whole lot of people that feel the same way about the bills that they sent in, that we did the work and it wasn't appreciated. And I think we're seeing this all the way around.
It was 2 days.
We'll see this all the way around. I'm seeing it everywhere, and it's something we all need to be conscious of in every way that we do it. Friends of the Library is feeling underappreciated. If you think the staff is feeling super appreciated, they're not. All the way around. So, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Please recognize the consequences.
Weren't the consequences laid out in the beginning of the meeting, and they're the same consequences for lack of cash reconciliation on the audit as an item? Yes,
James,
they are.
just so that they're clear, can you state legally ramifications of a late budget?
So there's several things that could happen. You could lose your grant funding from federal and state grants. You'd be non-compliant with the existing grants. You'd be disqualified from any future grants. You could eventually default on certain matters that are required to be paid. I mean, it's to be non-compliant, it's like the worst possible thing that you could do just from a public policy standpoint, let alone you'd be in violation of state law. I mean, is that how you want to say you fulfilled your role as a town commissioner, as a town commission, that you're non-compliant with your most basic foundation to pass a budget that was prepared and that could be amended? But I want to speak to real briefly, Nikki, because there's so much confusion about this MOU, right? There's so much confusion about, in my opinion, I don't see that you're exposed to any future liability for making unauthorized payments to the sheriff. As John Moore has said, they have a statutory responsibility to provide law enforcement throughout the county. Now, I helped the mayor draft a letter that was sent over to Sheriff Duncan Hedges. And in that letter, there was a specific request that the sheriff specify exactly the authority for him wanting to exact these charges from the town. Mayor, has the sheriff responded? Has he stated what authority he has to make these charges, these alleged charges against the town?
Negative.
Right. So when Lisa Roberts gets up there and talks to you and says, you have to be prepared to put in your budget to pay these charges that might come up, that the sheriff has yet to say what authority he has to impose these charges on the town. So to me, it's a completely erroneous argument. And for you to hold up your budget based on something that the sheriff cannot even quantify or state that he has the authority to charge the town, and you're going to hold up your budget on that? That would be an error in my judgment.
I think it's an error that we haven't done more to get this MOU done by now.
Okay.
The
Duly
MOU,
noted.
yeah, Nikki's been working on it along with the chief. And if it was something,
Well, that's our communication. We're in a standoff. We're not working on it. We're in a standoff.
Okay.
the sheriff has
Your
not
points
responded.
are
The
duly
sheriff has not
noted.
responded.
Okay.
It's not Nikki's fault. The sheriff has not responded.
I'm not saying it, and not wanting to move forward is no disrespect to Nikki. And as I said, I echoed Corey and Nikki Hankins. Everything you've done is very appreciated. You've done a lot for this town. That's not going unnoticed, but this is huge, and it has not been addressed in the way that I think that it should. That's my opinion.
It's not huge from a
say that my week,
budgetary standpoint.
no,
It's not huge from a budgetary standpoint if the sheriff can't articulate and state the authority he has for wanting you to create a budget to pay him for something he has no authority to charge you for. So how is that a budgetary requirement? It's not. But like Nikki said, do what you
make
gotta
it fair
do.
for everybody. That's all I'm asking. All the way across the board.
Have a conversation with it.
The last 2 emails have ended with, please feel free to contact me at any point to schedule a meeting. Should I say that again? Please feel free to contact me at any point to schedule a meeting. I said it in writing, the last 2. I can say it again and I can go. And again, I'm sorry, this week was not my week. You know, you all said these things at the last meeting. I need you to recognize that I know we have a name of Palmerton and a Haas. That is my cousin, so that is my family's loss. over the weekend. That was a little bit rough. And a couple extra caveats of not the best other things to play into that. So while I'm trying to do my best and I'm trying to be in this leadership position, please understand that that little extra was more than I could handle. I didn't want to be here even Monday at all. I felt like I should have been with my family. I was very worried that you were all going to come in with budget questions, concerns, comments after the work session. So I made sure to suck it up, Buttercup, and be here Monday so that you guys could come in and ask questions and clarifications and communicate. And I sat here till 4 and nobody showed up. So I'm trying. Please understand that I am as human as I can be. I am absolutely saying I have a ton of faults. They will show in various ways. This budget is one of them. Again, found holes, freaked out. Maybe didn't redistribute those holes where they needed to be, but I do know that there has been a lot of oversight, overlooking at some pretty critical areas that we need. I mean, if an ambulance can't get down the snowy road, last winter would have been impassable with that old truck. I mean, maybe some tandem with it. We need better plans. We need better communications. That's a giant thing. I don't know how to do that. I will figure out a way. If I have to do a newsletter every Monday morning, I guess that's how I start my day, with the mayor's minute, and it goes to everybody. I reach out to other people, guys. I've been calling, trying to get a hold and talking to Chris of Shoto, because if you actually, I don't know how he gets away with it, but, or how he does it or has the time to do it, but he does a message on Facebook every single day. He's good at it. I don't know if I have that.
Well, that's why I say, are we at a point that we need a mayor full-time or a town manager, or where are we if it's at this
That's
point?
part of the local government review, and that's down the road. But right now, there's this.
Well, I'm just responding to your expression of how much and overwhelming that it is.
Some
And
days
no
it can
disrespect.
get done and some days it can't. So.
Did you reach out on Friday, knowing that there were concerns about the MOU? Did you reach out on Friday? I can understand saying, please reach out to me. Please feel free to contact me, but saying, hey, are you available Monday from 2 to 4 is a totally different invitation from a standpoint of getting together with the sheriff, knowing that the October 1st deadline is here. And technically, we still have 3 days. 2 days to get something done.
I was going to ask, how does that look? Could there be an emergency meeting between county and town so that we can hear from both sides and really?
Thing like, excuse me, this is gonna take time. I mean,
That
you
is.
have to draw up documents. People have to look at them from both sides. So it's gonna be a time consuming thing to get it done.
You couldn't actually even do that. You couldn't do that and meet any requirements. I'm saying if you all wanted to be in a room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a quorum, right? And you said by the end of this month, today is the 28th, 29th, 30th, you couldn't post anything before. So you could do a Saturday meeting at best.
If we're late, or if we don't say yes to the budget today and it takes another week or two, how much are we gonna get fined? I mean, is it?
No, you don't get a fine.
So they
No.
just have to, they have to wait for us,
You get a budget finding.
and they have to wait for us. Yeah, I
will say this, that when I fill out federal grants, there's a checkbox on there, are you in compliance with all state laws? I will not be able to check that box, and therefore you will not get past the preliminary screen, and they will not let you apply for that because we would not have been in compliance with the state laws.
Is there going to be a grant applied for in the next 2 weeks?
I keep my eyes open, not just in the next 2 weeks, that's gonna be for this fiscal year, because they weren't in compliance. They violated state law for this fiscal year, so I won't be able to apply for another year.
We've already had a budget finding.
Yeah, we have had a budget finding on reconciliation.
So you don't have to check no now.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Right.
Yeah. I move to table until we can have a meeting with the sheriff's department and figure out an MOU. I move to table this and find more funds for the library.
And what?
And hopefully find more funds for the library.
Oh, I thought you said friends. Sorry, I'm tired.
So I have a question, just so I'm clear on it. So no MOU in place means what? Or we're concerned that we won't have coverage in the evenings. Is that true?
Taxpayers.
That's real, that's.
But they
Is that
have
what-
to cover the evenings, and statutorily, they are required to. Should they choose not to, a complaint will be sent immediately to the Attorney General's office, and potentially the sheriff could be charged with official misconduct for not meeting his statutory duty.
So the concern about making sure we have an MOU in place is just so we feel that we have evening coverage or after hours coverage.
The best
So there is an
public
example.
safety.
There was a call.
But what Chief Moore is saying is that the sheriff is already, by law, already needs to do that.
Correct.
So what will change?
So there's an example of a call that came in of a trespassing, I don't know if it's that town pump or not. So what the sheriff's department does.
Is public comment closed?
Let's try and hash out what we can. I know it makes
So the
it long.
sheriff's department
but
will
maybe we
stack
work things
calls
through.
and have EPD respond later. So there was a trespassing, instead of just taking care of it that night, issuing the citation, they then move it to John and Matt to deal with at a later date instead of dealing with it.
So the trespassing was not in progress when the call came in.
No,
And that
it
is,
wasn't.
it was not in progress. So therefore, the suspect is no longer there. So if an officer shows up anyways, there's nothing you can do except for exactly what we're gonna do the next day, is watch the video, find out who the suspect is, and then go find them later. So that would not have changed anything whatsoever.
But normally they would have responded to it.
No,
Yes.
they have not been responding to calls for a significant amount of time that they can stack to us.
Since this has been expired?
No, since before that, actually. The deputies started just going, oh, no, pass it to EPD, pass it to EPD, pass it to EPD, which is fine. We're fine with that. That's no problem for us. And you'll see a lot of the night calls on the board, on the log, that have a night next to them when I submit those, and they'll say EPD. Those are the ones that received at night that we handle the next day. Anything in progress, they have to handle. Anything that life safety is at risk, they have to handle. Yes, they are required to handle that. So there's nothing that has changed with that other than we get some more calls, which I'm fine with.
So Mayor Nikki, you said earlier that you would have an MOU by when?
To make that end of October deadline to make sure that my other fear is when we do last minute changes, that there's a room for an error in another way. It's not just a one number thing in one spot. Like, it takes a cascade. I don't know if you looked at Ginger tonight, but this is Ginger after a very long week of changing things. Weeks. This week has been extra fun trying to make it. So that's why I said if we did the second meeting, that would give me the chance to, and when you negotiate, you guys do business, right? It's not like first one, oh yeah, I love that offer, give it to me. It's a little bit of, it's back and forth in what is reasonable and what is reasonable for everybody. That's why I said, if I would recommend that you adopt this budget and not hold it up on one item, that you plan, and we say right here, right now, we're doing a budget amendment for the second meeting in October, which would be October 26th. Like I said, it was a little bit of a trying week. That's all I can do. And then you guys can all come in. I can show you where I think we can adjust things for the library, see where it goes, number-wise for sheriff, but I think it's all very doable. I don't know if I can pull all 9 mills. I mean, to the total of 9 mills. That's 15,000 that I got would have to find somewhere in the budget for the library. But there needs to be more in there for the capital improvement, and that was my mess up. And not planning for her capital improvement plans all the way through. But it's all the way across the board. Like, I didn't hear about carpet until the 11th hour, literally. Had not heard. I asked for budget wishes, dreams, lists. I heard nothing about carpet replacement from the library until the last month. How am I supposed to know that the library needs carpet? I need to know before September 1st.
And because you
So-
start in March and the mayor starts and Ginger start asking for budget information, doesn't mean they get it. The information I've been watching dribble in. I'm not involved in it.
I feel like I'm not either, but that's, I mean,
No, I mean, I don't have any of the inner workings on the budget. I don't touch that.
I gave you.
But you can start in January. If nobody is gonna submit anything, you're gonna be right where you are.
this last minute is bullshit. The last minute,
Well, on
push it
both
through,
sides.
push it through. Yeah, well, I'm not HR. I'm not HR, I'm not. Yeah.
I saw a budget, an initial budget of 190,000. I saw a secondary budget of 230,000. I've seen 3 different budgets from the library, and it's very hard to gauge when your initial is 190 to say that 230 is not adequate later. That is also a statement for me where that was what the initial was, and I'm like, okay, let's see what that is. And then I see one with 230 later. Like, what are our real numbers based on what reality? It's hard for me to present something to you, right? That's the job. Department heads give me what they think. I put that into what this is. Ginger puts this into what this is. I say adjust this, try and get Eric to change this number, that number, try and figure out what our next year projects are going to be, a guesstimate on those. I asked very specifically for any kind of items to give me a quote on it. I saw $8,000 worth of furniture, and I have no idea what that $8,000 buys you in furniture. I never saw a quote associated with it, nothing for the library. I know I see quotes for everything from printers to robes to everything, computers. It was a robe for Jordan. I see those things. So it's really hard for me to authorize an $8,000 budget item when I see no associated quotes that go with anything. Eric, when he was looking at a new jetter, quotes, what are we looking at? I want to see real numbers. Or am I going off of the best of eBay? Like, if you're going to present me with a number, present me with a quote or an idea so that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, everything, I feel like just looking at her budget, what she gave us is way more information than I got.
What do you get for $8,000 worth of furniture? You're part of the board. Tell me, what are you buying with $8,000 for furniture?
It's not on here, but new chairs for the room that are used that are.
From where?
Covered.
From where? I'm saying I'm presented with quotes all the way through. Like, I'm sorry, but unless you're going to present me with.
But look at her budget, 3 POS printers, office chair, public computers for backup. Like, this is way more detailed. I'm sorry, I'm picking, but than anything I saw in the police department.
Okay.
Until
so more
we
detailed.
requested the other purchase services. Like this is to a T. Black Mountain, Viper antivirus, like this is, I can look at this and know exactly where money's going here.
So you want a more detailed from each department?
Presentation by each department. And with that kind of, that was pretty
I mean,
easy.
you can look at it and see everything.
Okay.
Postage, ink, audio sleeves. Like,
All right. She's tabled the budget. Is there a second? Where are you guys at?
I feel like I still wanted to discuss some other options. So I'm not gonna second that.
Ginger said this is going to take a long time. What's a long time? I mean, we're talking 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or this is going to
He's
be
already said before October 26th.
to have an MOU?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. I heard you say October 26th, but okay, so by the end of the month.
Prior to October 26th.
Mhm.
So if we do a conditional approval of the budget, number one, requiring the mayor to find additional funding requested by the library by budget amendment. The discussion of the additional officer on the agenda for every meeting until further.
And you wanted to see if there was something for resort tax education. So.
Right, but there's no second. Or is there?
Without a second, then
Yeah, how does that work?
without a second, the motion dies. There is no second.
I second to table it.
Discussion.
I was gonna say, does it even count because we've already had discussion?
I know, it's been kind of.
That's fine. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, back to, well, discussion for being able to, if we can conditionally approve the budget.
Can we?
You're talking about your tabled. No, it's tabled. That's the motion that is on the floor, is to table this budget.
Discussion has to be now.
That's where you're at.
Table and request the meeting between county and town so we can get beyond this, whatever, I don't know the best word for it.
I think that's what Nikki's planning on doing between now and this time next month, right? Is that, or those discussions, right? So between now and a month from now, we're talking about the MOU.
Yes.
Between now and a month from now, those discussions are going to happen. Nikki's going to have those discussions with Nancy.
Now drag somebody along.
Yeah, it needs to be all of us.
Did I not
and-
just say?
The job of the commissioners.
We can,
I
an
don't know.
MOU,
I don't know.
we
Yeah,
can go
I
whichever way you want. You,
Okay, or even we.
I looked at the MOU with the Lions Club, and if you look historically, MOUs are signed by the mayor. It's one of my lovely duties. If you want to micromanage to some extent, I mean, nobody cared when it was a giant chunk of property and a huge amount of liability that the town could take on by not having a solid MOU there. Like, nobody cared to be part of that. Like, no offense, but that is a huge, I don't know. There was a lot of discussion amongst the mayors about parks and liabilities and everything else. So maybe that was my phobia of that, was right after I got back from mayor's conference and we were talking about tripping hazards and how much Butte had to have a suit for a bolt that was this big. Parks and liabilities were a big deal to me, but nobody really.
Well, this is learning for me.
But if you want to,
It
okay.
Brings me to this point. This is public safety. This is an unknown number. So to say, we know the library number is 14,000, I think, if I remember correctly. So we kind of know what that amendment would be. We don't know what this is going to be. And I think that we haven't addressed this because we're in a pissing match, for lack of a better term. We're not, I don't think that we're doing our part as a town for our community in getting this taken care of. We're pushing back, and this is priority. That's where I stand.
With all that discussion, I'm calling the vote on tabling this budget. Craig. Oh, he's still writing. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't think it needs to be taken.
Tina.
Yes, it needs to be tabled.
Yes.
No.
There's 4 of you.
Does that mean you have to vote?
It doesn't pass.
Okay.
I
so-
don't vote. The only time I do is in a veto of an ordinance or a resolution.
So are we back to discussion then?
You need a motion. But yes, you need a motion on what you guys want to do. That was a.
Oh, right. I want to discuss.
Make a motion.
Make a motion.
I make a motion. Do I have to put it with all this stuff in it?
You already did. I've got it in a minute.
Okay. Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the budget with the following conditions in place. I would require the mayor find additional funding requested, the additional funding requested by the library by budget amendment. Number 2, put the discussion of an additional officer on the agenda for every meeting until further determined by the council. Number 3, look into resort tax education. And number 4, have an MOU established on 26 October.
Well laid out, sir.
Discussion.
No, there has to be a second.
Oh, sorry.
Craig seconds it. We're going
That's
to
why I'm not-
postpone until she uses the restroom. Sorry.
I need to do that too.
Do it right now when Nikki's there.
She's in the bathroom.
Oh, sorry.
You guys can have a meeting.
I ignore signs. The haunted office.
I think it's Maria. Oh, shoot, sorry, Maria. I guess I'll keep the men's Oh.
There's always a line for the girls' restroom. I mean, you'll learn that at your first concert right off the bat. You have to plan accordingly. You're like, no, that is a really long line. Oh, we get our water out of the faucet in the back, out of the hose, yes. Our sink isn't big enough to get water.
I agree. I won't drink it. It's like bubblier. I don't know. My husband thinks I'm crazy, but I won't do it.
I just did it now and I regret it
Yeah,
the
no.
whole time.
It's like way more.
I was literally sleeping. It doesn't matter.
No,
It's my
but I'm
house
on the same
right
page.
now.
It's like
That's
more
water
bubbly
gone.
and weird. I won't do it either. Yeah. Yeah, my husband insists I'm crazy. I'm like, I'm not crazy.
Okay.
Don't drink bathroom water. That's gross.
Where'd she go? Oh, I was looking at. Never mind.
Right, Larry?
All right, Corey made a motion. Craig seconded it. Now we're to discussion amongst council.
Can you even put conditions on a budget approval?
Why not?
The attorney told you.
I can't speak to that 100%. I did talk with Forrest for a split second today, and he was. I know we're making a plan right now. And he did. That may have been one of the only things he was just like. Yeah, I shouldn't even have brought that.
Yeah.
But
Not.
Are these conditions on approval or are they recommendations to staff? Because they're two different things, what you're asking for here. Are these conditions, so if these conditions are not met, then the budget becomes unapproved? Or
That's what
are
I'm getting
these
from that.
directing staff to do these things? Because you asked for two different things and it's not really clear.
I'm making them conditions of the budget approval. So.
Which you set a deadline of the 26th, so I would have to meet all those conditions before then. Or you would have to, or the budget would be null and void. Then you'd have to notify the state that, or I would have to notify the state that the budget is null and void.
Satisfactory received by 26. All the conditions that you.
Exactly.
So,
What
yeah.
if you don't like the answer that the MOU provides? What if you don't like the answer of how much money the budget is, or the library's found? Then what would the condition be? What would the condition of the condition be?
You can do a what if until the cows come home. That's what you had your discussion point in on, as the motion that was made and the second that supported it.
Here's what I wrote down. And your motion is to approve, conditioned on the mayor finding the additional funding for the library. A third officer subject appears on the future agendas. A resort tax education begins. And the MOU is with the sheriff's department is established prior to 10/26, when you would do a budget amendment.
I mean,
because the ones that are
theoretically,
open-ended, like the ones that are open-ended, like the resort tax and the, correct me if I'm wrong, and the third officer being on the agenda, those are open-ended.
Different conditions, right?
Yeah.
They're forever.
If those conditions cannot be met 8 months from now, then automatically your motion and budget becomes unapproved.
A third
So
officer going
friendly
on the
amendment.
agenda is pretty simple to accomplish.
Edit, copy, paste.
He said all future agendas.
Edit,
Well,
copy, paste.
until not resolved, until determined by council.
Future agendas.
I see where, and maybe I guess you can always break it down legally. I see where you're going with this. I at least think I understand where you're going with this, and will make every effort to give you like a weekly synopsis of what's going on. I think that's the best that I can do from here, and then addition. But that way I can clarify things earlier. But I need you guys to ask questions, and if I don't know the answers, I can direct you. You've had questions about budget, and if you didn't feel okay asking me or Ginger, please remember that I gave you the website, 2 resources, and with those resources were phone numbers of amazing people like Darla Erickson who can answer questions for you. So you're not alone, and there are literally hundreds of commissioners around the state that feel the same way you do. You've met them at conferences, reach out to them, they can help you. You have to start by asking the questions.
I understand that, but half the time you don't start thinking about questions until you're brainstorming with other people. And when we get 2 sessions to look at the budget, that's,
okay.
I mean, it's just not much. Especially when all the line items break down and all that kind of stuff. And I'm 2 years in, maybe I should be much more intelligent about this, but I'm not. Am I 2 years? I don't know.
So looking at it the other way, so we hold the budget hostage, the MOU negotiations go on, and we still don't get what we're looking for an MOU. Do we just keep not voting for the budget? Or,
Well, if we don't meet that condition, then the budget is.
well, what does an acceptable MOU look like? Hopefully, like I said before, to protect and serve, hopefully these 2 entities can join together and figure it out. That's the part that kind of drives me
Well,
crazy.
maybe we can do the meeting.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Like, I don't know the legal.
So 2 of you are not a quorum.
So how do you know when you get there?
Hey, good. 2 of you are not a quorum. So in case there's a meeting where they say, can you meet this afternoon? That would make it so, no offense, but you don't have to hold public. And I don't have to say, no, I can't until 24 hours. But if you want 3 of you, we'll do it that way. But 2 of you to help me negotiate with the sheriff's office. There's your, like, it's not me on my own. There's 2 of you. If you want 3, then say 3, and we can make sure that it's publicly noticed, but it's got to be publicly noticed, recorded, and everything else when you do it.
But they would have to be available as well. So there's, I mean,
I think the biggest thing is that they don't have to notice what you do. So I think it's a matter of you all getting together.
so
I would like to be a part of it. I don't know if Willis does, but I would like to be in on the conversation.
I'll do it as well.
Okay. If you're comfortable with that, as that facilitates your MOU happening before the 26th.
and then we'd meet on the 26th and be able to have
A budget amendment.
Okay. 9. Really? Yeah.
Why is it okay to delay it for an amendment, but it's not okay to just delay it if you're so certain that you're gonna have an answer on the 26th? If you're so confident you're gonna have an answer on the 26th, why is it such a big deal to table it? If you're so confident you're gonna have an answer, you're confident you're gonna have an answer for the conditions on the 26th, but you're not confident to table it to have an answer on the 26th?
I feel like arguably we're accomplishing the same thing either way. We're removing a chess piece, potentially. We're holding like I said earlier, we're holding the MOU or the budget hostage, is how I initially felt about it.
We need to meet our statutory requirement, which is October 1st. That's why it's being approved tonight. That's why Corey's motion is on the table.
And I'm honestly comfortable moving forward this way. I know we've addressed transparency. I think there's been some conversation that way publicly made, and hopefully we don't have any more transparency issues. So, I mean, moving forward, this is my attempt at that, I guess.
All right, I'm calling the vote on Corey's motion, second from Craig, with conditions. Tina?
We already voted. Am I?
Voted on the table.
Yep. You have a new
His
motion.
motion is to approve.
With the conditions. Oh, no.
Nikki, sorry.
Yeah, can I abstain because it's gonna do the same thing?
No.
You know my concerns. I mean, I want to say no, but I don't want to be here till midnight either. So I guess I am satisfied with those conditions that we will be attending the meeting, and with all of Corey's other conditions, then yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Move to adjourn.
Wait, no. So that's basically resolution
And-
592, adopting with conditions.
I meant to
And then
ask
you
that
have to do
earlier, too.
wages.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I meant to ask that earlier. Why didn't we adopt the wages and then the budget?
I guess we could have done it that way.
Well, doesn't make sense because that involves the budget, right? Like the wages are affecting the budget. Already did it.
Yeah,
I meant to bring that up, but I forgot to.
I don't understand. I didn't understand that either, actually.
I should have put them the other way.
If you pass the budget, aren't you already passing? the
Yes,
budget?
I
that's
know,
exactly.
but
So
I should have done
what-
it the other way. I should
And
have
it
done
also
it
says
that
just
first.
discussion, not vote. Budget discussion, no vote.
So can you vote on the budget since the public didn't know it was being voted on?
Public knows it was being voted on.
There wasn't a public notice in the library.
No public notice.
At the library?
I'll find that. I believe she did post
Ask
it.
Randy, she was there last night.
What's our question then? So it says resolution 592
The budget.
adopting the 23-24 fiscal year budget.
Right, but it says budget discussion, not vote. Don't say vote on there. Confused. I just-
But adopting insinuates, yeah. Budget discussion before is, I guess that's how I read it.
I thought at one point I saw it and vote, but maybe it was on the, I don't know.
It wasn't put. How do we know when it was sent? Do we have confirmation? But it doesn't matter.
Was there
there a request for her?
It faxed and it was also sent from the publishing directly to the library. So that would go into their library email account.
Well, that would have been a good one to start with.
Yeah. Thanks for saving that.
So with that in mind, without the second place publicly noticed, the hearing is null and void. So that's a nice painful moment at 9:20. So will we immediately schedule a meeting for next Thursday? So that it can be publicly noticed in the paper. It won't come out, I mean.
Does it have to go paper here at library?
Mm-hmm.
And online, but the state law was supposed to affect October 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good.
So wait, so where are we?
Nowhere. We're adjourning because we don't have public requirements.
So
I'll have a new agenda out for you for next Thursday. Saved ourselves a great night.
We can utilize this time to reach out to Duncan, right? See if he can get us-
So does that mean we have time to, have we adjourned?
We're adjourning. I'm adjourning. You cannot vote on anything else.
Okay,
So
but
there's no point.
can we have a meeting between town and sheriffs? Oh, but we can't, what's the soonest we could do it? If it works out, yes. What would be the soonest that we could do it and it's not the quorum isn't an issue?
I don't.
So how are we gonna find this out?
Maybe next week.
The librarian, whoever gets the email.